Okay, 26th of September, speaking class, contracted version. We did this. It's actually our nighttime class. I'll go back. So we looked at speaking and we looked at, it has different definitions, but basically they all say it's interactive and conveying information. Cheney says it's the process of building and sharing meaning through the use of verbal and non-verbal. Verbal meaning pragmatics and also proximity, how close you stand. Pragmatics is facial, gesturing, body language. According to Brown and Burns, speaking is an interactive process of constructing meaning that involves producing and receiving. So it includes listening as well. You cannot do one without the other. So as you can see, all of these talk show has listening and speaking. All of this. So oral communication skills and pedagogical research. So in order to speak, you need to be able to have a conversation, which means you need to teach pronunciation and we need to teach accuracy, that they understand, for example, prepositions, and fluency, that they're confident and they can be fluid, be able to speak without stopping and starting. And that they need to be able to relay a message using the appropriate language. And the effective factors, us as a teacher, we need to make sure that they're not anxious or afraid, worried about the hearers' reactions. So we're not going to have people laughing at them. So their ego is important. So you are what you speak. Learners are judged by hearers. So we need to make sure they feel confident. And interaction effect, sometimes you have what's called an interlocutor effect. So if they think the person they're talking to will laugh at them, they won't want to speak. So if the person is supportive, then they will. Types of speaking, you've got monologue, which is you yourself, and dialogue, talking. So you have planned, which is a speech. Unplanned, you're just talking to yourself. And here, interpersonal and transactional. This is social, and this is like buying, shopping. And you have familiar and unfamiliar for both. So when we speak, sometimes it's a set phrase. Each lexicon might be understandable, but when we put it together, it means something. So this is called clustering. Another problem with speaking is that we have redundant words like are, like, as, and reduced forms like I'm, we are, they are. You could have things like fillers, and other problems might be that there's lots of colloquial language, like slang, rate of delivery too fast, stress, rhythm, intonation. You need to know if you speak using stress in the wrong place, different meaning. And interaction, if there's no interlocutor, someone to talk to, then it's hard. So you need to have someone who will actually actively listen to you to make you to want to speak. As I said, transactional is buying something. Interpersonal is your feelings. And these are types of interpersonal ways of speaking. Okay, and we want to improve people's speaking because we say, I speak French, I speak Spanish. It's the most popular macro skill. And as mentioned before, that affective factors like shyness, inhibitions, fear, finding things to say. So maybe you're not very creative, or the listener isn't, or the teacher's not getting you to participate, or your L1 is rampant in the class, will all make your speaking less. How to design should be SEA and administer speaking procedures to get students to talk. Well, the language has to be at an acceptable level, or if not, as Chomsky says, +1. So your language L +1. Or that's speaking crashing. Principles for designing speaking technique. So we need to look at all this stuff, fluency and accuracy, intrinsically motivated, so not extrinsically. We don't want to give them lollies and chocolates. They need to know themselves that they need to be able to speak to survive if they live here in Australia. And give not too much criticism. So if you're going to be very subtle with your critique, that'll be better if you have a good relationship. So non-obtrusive way of correcting, or wait till the end and don't name the person with a mistake. authentic materials that are related to what the students are interested in, and you take what you need from them just to make it so they feel like they're actually learning something that's real. But don't give the whole text if it's not relevant, just what you need from it. And we need to develop speaking activities that will get them to clarify and repeat and practice using fillers and other words that we use to maintain a conversation. So basically lots of prompts, lots of realia, so it will initiate oral communication, a natural link between speaking and listening, so lots of role plays, not too much negative feedback, and have them intrinsically motivated, let them know it's necessary to be able to speak, which they should be anyway, ESL learners living in Australia. So they need to know how to get someone's attention to say things, how to paraphrase, put in their own words, and formulate expressions like, how are you going? In America, how are you doing? These are set expressions that are necessary. So which do we do first, accuracy or fluency? I'm sure everyone in my class knew the answer was accuracy. Fluency comes after. So that's when we want them to speak in a native-like way, having the correct pausing, rhythm, intonation, stress, rate of speaking, interjections and interruptions. And the accuracy is the first one when we have controlled activities where we're checking that they get all the little words right as well. So you can have substitution drills, transformation drills. So that's when the noun is changed. Substitution is the verb. Functional situational is when like 2 or 3 words from the sentence change. Lots of pair work and group work. Teaching conversation. So Richards says that there's direct and indirect. So basically you might say, today I will teach you about conversation. I'll teach you about fillers. Or it could be indirect where it just comes up in the book and there's a topic and you get the students talking about it. So for example, this is indirect one where you get them looking at how people plan their time, their hobbies, and through that conversation. So the topic is actually hobbies. And this one is direct because it's about gambits, which means fillers. Is that right? Really? How interesting. So you extrinsically teach this, explicitly teach. Transactional, so you're buying something from the catalogue, so you're teaching them that. Transactional as well. And this one is meaningful because we're talking about what you would do. So that's interesting for them because, you know, if I could change schools, I would go to, for example. So we're using would, hypothetical, but for your own friends, family, habits. So it's interesting. And here we have individual practice. So record yourself on the voice memos and other interactive games. Interactive, such as these ones, speaking performances. So when they're giving you a talk, you have to have the rubrics ready for them. So short, simple, snappy, and make sure they know the goals, the students, when they're listening, you need to set out what it's all about and have some structure involved so the students know what to present. Okay, so when you give them a speaking performance, you need to work out if it's intensive or responsive. Intensive is when you say 5 minutes talk on this topic, this person, this historical event, go. And responsive is like in the IELTS and PTE tests where you have part A and part B in the IELTS PTE for speaking. Part A might be a simple question like, what do you think about living in Australia? And then part B might be, if you could describe yourself as a colour, which colour would it be? Which is quite abstract and difficult. Teaching pronunciation. So in the 70s, it was incidental, and then 80s we started IPA. So now we teach using the IPA. Features of pronunciation. So whichever native language is will affect to a more or less extent. So the redundant little sounds, Japanese and Korean say. Maybe Dutch people might put the th as t. Maybe Spanish people might pronounce as o. I don't know. It's all really up to what the L1 effect causes. But other things we need to look at is exposure, how much time they've had. We all have an innate phonetic ability, but it soon disappears after the age of 11. Identity and language ego. So if you take on the persona of the person who usually speaks that language, sometimes if you speak Japanese, you act a bit more humble because you're taking on that persona. That's still important because you need to know the cultural side. If you come across too aggressive, even though you're speaking Japanese and you're a Westerner, it's still not acceptable. So you need to take on the ego as well as the language. To motivate yourself is important. So good pronunciation will come hand in hand with that. If you can be understood because your pronunciation is good, you'll be more motivated to learn. So we learn about pitch, as you can see here. So another worksheet to improve pronunciation. And stress contrasting nouns. So the listing of adjectives, usually we say the French good-looking man. Well, the man is stressed, and two adjectives are not. So feedback and correction, as mentioned before, when you're doing accuracy, we give feedback straight away. When it's fluency, we wait until the end unless you have a good relationship with them. Giving immediate is better, but if you give it too much and get the student off topic, then they might lose their flow of concentration. It might be harder for them, and also it might embarrass them. They might lose face. And if you've already critiqued them a bit too much, then they're not going to appreciate you doing it. As you can see here, the effective feedback and the cognitive feedback is important. So you will see the green colour means you can go through. So if they're feeling confident, then you can continue, and then they get the message feedback. So you tell them that their attitude is good, and here you give them that the message is good, and then it will continue on. But here, if you say their attitude is no good, then they will abort and the message won't get relayed. So the idea is that you make them feel good, confident, and then hopefully from there they will continue, not abort, and then the message will get through as well. So it's actually very important that we praise our students. Fossilization is a good or bad meaning to learn something off by heart, basically. So sometimes people have not been corrected in the past and they've got an error that's fossilized. So once again, this is looking at giving positive feedback and positive cognitive. So you say, keep talking, I'm listening. This one is, I understand your message, it's clear. If you get negative here, you might not continue on to there. So the task of the teacher is to always give, a nice balance. If you want to give feedback that's critiquing them, always give them some appraisals as well. So praiseworthy, balance it up with the critiquing. So listening to facilitate speaking. So teach good listeners, do dictation, paper conversations, computer work like using the call, computer assisted language learning. Okay, you've got spoken tests like these ones here. And conclusion is, well, yes, speaking is very important and the students need to be able to speak well to improve. So I can say whoever knows speaking language, it means that they actually know the language. And that was the end of our 26th of September speaking class.